We hear a lot of perspectives on the Mankind podcast. Inclusion of a guest is not an endorsement of their views, and the opinions expressed here do not always represent the mission or values of the Mankind Project USA.
My name is Brandon Clift, and you are listening to the Mankind podcast. And before we get into the intro of this episode, happy birthday to the Mankind podcast. It's been 365 days. We are 60 episodes deep, 30,000 downloads down, and we are so grateful. We could not be here if it wasn't for you, the listeners, supporting us through this journey. And I can tell you right now, it is only the beginning.
Looks like the rain has gone.
G'day and welcome to the Mankind podcast, the show where we break the molds of modern manhood to prove there's more than one way to be a man. I'm your host today, Brandon Clift, and this is a different episode. I, in fact, am the one being interviewed by the gents at the Dare to Dream podcast. Vincent Van Patten and Gregory Russell Benedict led me through a fantastic interview, and it was thoroughly enjoyable for me because I am seldom interviewed. In fact, I do the interviewing. So it was really nice and intriguing to have my experience in men's work and my time with this podcast on display. You know, getting to ask or answer some pretty insightful questions that Gregory and Vincent sent my way gave me a really cool chance to identify that this work, although endless, never ending, is materialized as I go through it. For you yourself, you may be in the early days of men's work and you may be sitting at the bottom of the mountain looking at the top wondering how I'm going to get there. Well, first of all, there is no top of the mountain. And secondly, it's always important to honor yourself and your journey for where you are right now. And listening back to this interview was a wonderful opportunity for me to go, wow, I've done some work here. You know, I've learned some things in my time in men's work and doing this work. So I hope that you get a lot out of this interview. We cover all things from my incredibly unsuccessful run on Australian Ninja Warrior to finding the calling to leave Australia, you know, on a 12-week timeline, sell everything I owned, my guitars, my surfboards, my car, my business, to go take off to the jungles of Peru, to do plant medicine and travel through Southern and Central America and finally make it to the States. It was nice to recap that journey and identify that in a relatively short period of time, a lot of transformation can occur. So they titled this episode, Learning to Love the Man in the Mirror, with Australian Ninja Warrior Brandon Clift. And I think that's a very fitting title. For this, I think we're going to title it Young, Dumb, and Full of Passion. You thought I was going to say something else, didn't you? Anywho, I hope you enjoy this interview with me, being interviewed by the Dare to Dream team, Vincent Van Patten and Gregory Russell Benedict. Enjoy.
Welcome back to the Dare to Dream podcast. This is episode number 60, and my name is Gregory Russell Benedict.
And I am Vincent Van Patten.
And this is a podcast about what might be and who you could become when you have the courage to follow your dreams. Today, we are sitting down with a very special guest. His name is Brandon Clift. And instead of me blathering on about his story, I'm just going to hand it over to him and let him introduce himself.
Fantastic. I mean, the two of you have such like billboard movie star names. I'm grateful to be in the club. I've always wanted Brandon Clift to be like, you know, up there with the Gregory Pecks and the, you know, and the Mark.
That is a strong leading name though, Brandon Clift. I'll give you that.
Thank you. My kids, like, I often wonder like what their names are going to be when they eventually come around, and you know, I could really set them up for failure and be like, you know, oh no, I'm gonna offend someone if I throw some ideas out. But
We'll brainstorm later.
So, yep, Brandon Clift. Grateful to be here. A little bit about myself. Former vagabond, but still a vagabond at heart. I've spent a lot of time traveling the world, living with different cultures, different peoples. Constantly tearing apart my understanding of the world, continually humbled when I look in the mirror and realize all that I don't know, and professionally currently working as a growth strategist and business coach at a marketing agency. But outside of that, for fun, I tell people that I build conscious communities of men and have done so for the past 7 years all over the world, setting up men's circles to give men an opportunity to look in the mirror, get to know themselves, become better fathers, better husbands, better brothers, better citizens of this world. So that's a huge passion of mine. And I think all of that extends to my work with the Mankind podcast, a show where we break the molds of modern manhood to prove there's more than one way to be a man. So that's my elevator pitch right there. And I'm very, very excited and grateful to be here with the two of you.
We are excited to have you. And just a quick note for all of our female guests listening who are quickly falling in love with you and your amazing Australian accent. You just got engaged. So congratulations, man.
Oh no, off the market. It's I'll tell you what, I met the woman of my dreams, and I couldn't see myself carrying on this journey of life with anyone else, and I'm so grateful. And I still think I get to be cheeky and flirty with I'm sure I'm allowed to, but
Flirting with life.
It's a very adult thing. I still wonder like when that point's going to come that I grow up, but could be never. Who knows? I just know that it feels natural, it feels right, and I couldn't be happier.
Hell yeah, man. Well, we're going to dive into all of that because your story is so interesting. But me and Greg were looking over some of the videos that you have created on YouTube. I guess we'll just dive right into it. You are known as one of the people who you were knocked out of American Ninja Warrior quicker than anybody else, something like that. I'll let you explain.
I always wanted to hold a world title growing up. I thought it was going to, growing up as a professional gymnast, I thought I was going to hold the world record for the furthest distance walked on my hands. Little did I know I was going to hold the world record for the fastest elimination in Ninja Warrior history at 2.25 seconds. So I never got 15 seconds of fame. I got 2.25. But hey, look, I'll take it. I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, so just whatever attention I can get, I'll take.
Yeah, that was hilarious video. But we noticed, so we were watching your application video for the next season, and I mean, insanely just impressive. You were doing backflip burpees, and so besides that, you just said that you just love clowning around, and your whole perspective and attitude in the videos is just having fun and enjoying life, and we really love that. And can you just tell us about just how clowning around is a part of your life?
Do you guys have you guys seen Deadpool?
Yes.
So I love when movie characters break the fourth wall, which is they're playing out this movie, but then they turn and face the camera and talk directly to the audience. That really appeals to me because it cuts through the narrative, the greater narrative that's happening. It's a pattern break. And for me, the reason why I enjoy that is I just love calling out the elephant in the room when it's there. A big part of my work and men's work is helping men remove their masks. And I can tell you right now, I've got tons of them and I still wear them, right? But I want to become more conscious and not wearing those masks. And so here's the thing, I'm at dinner last night with a friend of my partner's and all of her friends are there. And for the first time in my life, I'm the minority in a situation. I'm surrounded by BIPOC men and women. And, some jokes are going around and I'm nervous, right? Because I'm doing my work around my racial biases and judgments and assumptions. Like, I'm waking up to my whiteness and, I'm a student in this game and very much a white belt. And, someone makes a joke like about me and my missus, I don't know, having a threesome or something. And I was like, yep, when you taste that vanilla, you don't want to you don't want to go back. And I was like, part of me wanted to catch my words, but another part of me was like, yeah, like stand on some skinny branches and have fun. And the intentions aren't bad, but also the awareness of I need to take ownership and responsibility for the outcomes of my intentions, whether intended or not, right, of my actions. And so I just think that we can get a lot more done and have a lot more productivity if we just have a bit of fun. And there's a line there to be towed. I understand and appreciate and respect that there's time and place, right? Situational awareness, I think, is important. And trust me, I've touched every stove when it comes to situational awareness. I met my girlfriend's best friend for the first time at her grandma's funeral, and I made a dick joke right next to her open casket. And I just remember stopping and being like, oh my gosh, I'm the worst human being on the planet. Like, said that out loud, but I was able to get a chuckle out of them. Not that I was trying, I don't know what I was doing, but, but I just find myself in those situations all the time. But I hope people know that in no way do I ever intend to take away from the serious of a moment, right? Yeah, and the weight of a room. It's important to be aware of that stuff. I'm rambling, but to answer your question, things are just more enjoyable if we can have a bit more fun and not be so serious.
I couldn't agree with that more. And it seems to me, all of the Australian people I've met seem to have this lighthearted energy, this playfulness. And I'm wondering if you meet Americans and you're like, damn, why is everyone so serious? Or what your thoughts are on that.
So that is definitely an experience I've come across a lot, and feedback I've heard from a lot of people is that a lot of the Aussies they meet are very lighthearted, not a care in the world kind of attitudes, and I get that because I feel that way myself. Growing up in Australia, we never spoke about politics. The world was never on fire. All we cared about was the surf good and was the pub still going to be serving pints and chicken parmesanas at the end of the day. Like it, and I can't speak for all Aussies, but that was my experience growing up. And coming to the States, there's a bit more thickness in the air, and there are a lot of people that are fighting to either achieve or retain what it is that they want in their life for their communities. And it's happening on many fronts and it's happening on many sides. And what's sad for me is I witness a lot of people that seem to believe that life is a zero-sum game, that in order for them to win, others have to lose. And that makes me upset. And so when people want to get into politics with me, when people want to get into social challenges with me, I tend to sit from the lens of asking just more questions than giving my thoughts and opinions. Because here's the thing, my thoughts and opinions change all the time. And if I want to learn from the experience of someone who isn't white, who doesn't identify as straight, rather than say, help me as a white, cisgendered, privileged bloke understand your experience, I go, what do you want me to know about your experience of growing up black, your experience of growing up gay? Help me understand that experience. And it's been helping me kind of inform the kind of ally I want to be to people around me and what role I can play in the world. Because, yeah, the air is thick here, and I have no idea what the solution is to that. I can say peace, love, man, but if I had a magic wand, that's what it would be. But, the reality is much different for many people.
Yeah. Maybe that's where we can go next, is how did you end up in America? I know you left Australia and you went on some grand adventures. Could you tell us about some of those?
Yeah, for sure. So first and foremost, I'm a dual citizen. My dad was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which is where I live. So as a kid, every second Christmas, I got to come here and see my grandparents and my cousins. So eternally grateful that my parents valued that over having nice cars and things. And by all accounts, I've had a very, very privileged upbringing, very affluent. So there weren't opportunities that I didn't have access to. So really make that clear. There's no rags to riches story here for anyone listening. I'm not the archetype of rags to riches, I can tell you that. So I got to go to the States quite a bit and experience life over here. And back in Australia, I was getting into the fitness space. I saw all these people with six packs and hot chicks, and I'm like, oh, I kind of want to be in that space. I had some challenges with confidence, and I found myself in the fitness world, along with every other man, woman, and dog in Australia seems to have their personal training ticket. I can tell you that. So I got involved in that space, but I found a really strong niche in working with people that have had challenges with mental health because of my own experiences of challenges with mental health. And so we ended up building a pretty successful little crew of kind of healthy warriors that have all themselves had challenges with the person in the mirror, whether through anxiety, whether depression, suicidal ideation. We really became a gym of misfits that didn't want to be Instagram famous. We didn't want the boobs, the butts, the abs. It was mainly just finding community around something that was really helpful. to our well-being across the board in professional life or relationships. And so we had this community being built, and the Gold Coast, where I'm from, has the highest density of fitness professionals in the Southern Hemisphere. Like, really, like when I say every man and woman has a personal training ticket, it's not far off. So the competition's really high, but through our message, through our community, through word of mouth, within 2 years, we were ranked the #1 gym in the Gold Coast. I don't know how that's calculated, and I don't know the metrics of that. It may be a popularity contest. I don't know if we truly deserve the title, because I had many, many peers in that space that were doing incredible things. But here we are, #1, like, and man, what that did for my ego. Whew. My self-worth went through the roof. And all of a sudden, with the attention, with the adulation, with the newspaper articles and the TV time, I got swept up in it, in the hysteria, in the ride, and I established a new normal there, which I learned that's not what happens in life. You don't get to climb the peak and stay up there. So when the valleys hit, when the challenges came, when there were legal disputes with our lease, and when, a partnership was falling apart, and all of a sudden me as a 24-year-old, I'm getting threatened to have my knees beaten in with a cricket bat by a business deal gone wrong, I just got so lost in it. And so when we were experiencing challenges and a lot of failure, when I looked in the mirror, I said, you are challenged, you are a failure. I didn't know how to separate myself from me and the business. I couldn't separate the two. And speaking with a lot of entrepreneurs, I've experienced that to be the case for many others as well, is if this isn't doing well, then who am I? What am I? Jim's failing, I'm a failure. And so that became a very, very heavy cross to bear for me. And especially as someone who was solely depending on the validation of others, it's unsustainable. That's what I've heard people call coal energy. It's dirty energy. This isn't solar power we're talking about. This is dirty coal. And I just couldn't get past it. A new ceiling was created, and I just could not get through it. I was not eating. I was purely depending on caffeine. But here I was listening to Gary Vaynerchuk, and the only path to me that was clear was just to work my way out of it and hustle out of it. And it was in the middle of a Tony Robbins mastermind. I paid the money and went to the Tony Robbins mastermind. And if you've ever been to one of those events, jump up and down, high energy, give me more, scream more. You end the experience without a voice. Well, I was jumping up and down, and next thing you know, I wake up in a space blanket and I've passed out completely, face down. Doof. Ended up having to get on a plane and go home, and I had influenza for 2 weeks. Couldn't get off the couch. And that was kind of a bit of a wake-up call, but it wasn't enough. Nope. Had to get back on that hustle train, and it was interesting. Again, I'm trying to give you an abridged version of a very expansive period of time. I was getting deep into men's work and working with the Mankind Project, who I currently today still work with and host the podcast. So I was turning up to men's circles, and it made me realize how thick my mask was. I don't know if you've ever had sports tape on a hairy arm or a shin. When you take that tape off, a lot of hairs go with it, and I felt like that tape was on my face. And it just was coming off so slowly, and I couldn't get away from this identity that my ego had crafted as a survival mechanism, really. And it was in a sweat lodge that one of the water pourers in our organization put on that I finally had this aha moment. This really strong purge came out when I was in the sweat. And I don't know what came out, but people around me were saying that it was pretty bad juju. Like it was a dark energy, and it supposedly wasn't my voice. I'm saying this as an agnostic man, so I don't know where or what, but all I know is it had to get out. And I ended up getting this clear message, and it was just, I've got to go. I've got to go. I don't know where, but it's not Australia. And within 12 weeks, I sold my gym, sold my car, sold my surfboards, reluctantly sold my guitars. Oh, those were tough. And just everything I couldn't fit into a suitcase, I sold. And just at the same time, I happened to be listening to, I don't know if you guys are aware of the Aubrey Marcus podcast, or Aubrey Marcus with On It. Oh man, that guy for me, what a beautiful soul. He's been a guide for me for many, many years now. And he was interviewing his guide, his mentor, his shaman, Don Howard Lawler, in his I'm getting emotional. And he was interviewing him about ayahuasca and his experience at Chochinche, the kind of sanctuary in Peru. And I just, before the podcast finished, I booked the plane ticket and just went, paid for the experience, took off. And man, I tell you what, four ceremonies over 8 days, I feel like I danced with the devil himself through all of that. First ceremony, I asked Mother Ayahuasca, show me my path. And I drank the cup, that nasty brew, most disgusting thing I've ever drank in my life. And I sat down, and everyone else around me, it's pitch black. Everyone else around me is going on this wild adventure. Nothing. I'm getting nothing. And I'm like, I want to, I saw the documentary. Everyone was tripping balls. I want to trip balls, man. I want to go on this full on space adventure. And nope, wasn't for me. And then right at the end of that first ceremony, I get this message. And she goes, ask a better question next time. The question was a head question. It wasn't a heart question. It wasn't a gut question. It wasn't a cock question. It was none of those energy centers. It was my head asking me, show me my path. Am I going to be like some life coach? Am I going to be like some men's work influencer? How am I going to make money? How am I going to survive now that I've gotten rid of this gym? And wrong question. 2 days went by to the next ceremony, and through some work checking in with the other people there and kind of really having to question my ego of like, you know what, I just wanted to trip balls. I thought I was going to find it getting lost in the ether, but it was an ego question. And the second question or ask that I came to the ceremony after a lot of introspection was, Mother Aya, please, please, please show me how to love myself. I'll tell you what, man, I drank the brew, sat in that chair, sat back, had a big yawn, and realized my jaw double extended. And I was like, whoa, my jaw doesn't double extend. And I looked down and I've got pores all of a sudden. And I'm like, whoa, and my chair is like a flower, like one of those avatar flowers, very phosphorus light. And I'm a jaguar. And I'm like, oh, it's wild. Anywho, I won't get into all of the details because we'll be here a while. But tell you what, man, I got to experience for the first time my chest crack open. And just all of the love that everyone around me had been trying to give me was finally landing. Because anyone in the past would say, on a head level, I could tell you the importance of self-love. I could tell you about it all day. I could write an essay on it. I'd never integrated it. I'd never felt it myself. I could tell you about it though. It was coming in. It was integrating. And it was all the years of people trying to tell me that they love me and they care about me and that I'm important to them, but just like ping pong, I just served it back. No. I love you, Greg. I love you, Vinny. No. That's okay. I don't need love. I'm fine. But I love you. And so it was landing for the first time. And I tell you what, man, my white belt went back on. And it's been a journey ever since. I would not consider myself a black belt in self-love whatsoever. Probably a yellow belt at this stage. But it was the first time that I realized that I was getting my fuel from the wrong place. I was getting my fuel from dirty energy. It was validation from others. It was trying to be number one or the best or some other social construct of what success looked like. And it's not the case. It's the only judge, jury, and executioner is the man I see in the mirror. And I'm still at odds with that bloke all the time, but I'm working at it. It's a day-by-day approach, and I'm getting there slowly. So I don't think I'll ever arrive. I don't think there's such thing as arriving, but that's what got me to South America. What got me to the States was a love interest after that got me to Salt Lake, and amazing experience, but wasn't the one. So when I'm in Salt Lake City and I don't know anyone and a relationship's ended, I go, well, I have family in Chattanooga. I guess I'll go there. And February 2020, we had a pretty big thing happen in the beginning of 2020, all of us. And that's where I met my now fiance.
Wow.
Unreal, man. That is such a cool story.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think we're all feeling this, like we're all strapping our white belts back on just in this whole new paradigm that we're living in of how to be human. Like everything's kind of the rug's been pulled from under us. And, people have lost their jobs, lost their lives. And we're just figuring out what it means to be alive again, like enjoy the little things again. Like, we're kind of reemerging a bit, but like, what are we really doing here? And
yeah,
like, I mean, I love your story so much. And something I want to kind of ask you about is with your projects now and your company and everything, like and I think we're seeing that like what a man is kind of changing, like what it means to be a man. And I think some of those kind of negative, aspects of like what we consider to be a man that have kind of been holding us back for forever, perhaps, are kind of falling away a bit. And I'm interested in your perspective on like what it takes to be a real man and kind of what you see when you look in the mirror. What does that mean to you?
If you're enjoying the Mankind podcast, how about checking out an online men's group? Imagine a brotherhood where men really listen and support each other to be the best of who they are. It's free, confidential, and facilitated. Groups are available multiple times every week. Just go to bit.ly/open men's group to learn more.
Yeah, beautiful question. Well, let me ask you, Vinny. What do you think it means to be a man?
So yeah, I mean, I think about it quite a bit, and I think in my life right now, and what we're both kind of dealing with is exactly what you're talking about, taking off that mask and being vulnerable with ourselves even. And I'm trying to find what I'm pretty much going on the journey that you've been on, and you clearly are still on and will always be on. But I think it comes down to just being a good person. And I'm really trying to figure out what that is. Like, because we have this thing inside of us that some sort of compass, and even when the world tells us maybe we're doing the right thing because we're getting ahead, we're hustling, we know our compass is leading us astray and we're not following our heart. And there's just something so deeply ingrained in us that what a good person is or what should be. And when you stop following that and adhering to that inner compass, you're the only one who knows it and feels it. And that is what brings people to hell. That's the most difficult thing to overcome and to come to grips with, because you're the only one who feels it, and stronger than anybody else is going to feel it around you. And so I think a man is somebody who follows that inner compass, probably against what the world thinks and tells them a man should be. And also something I've been kind of grappling with is maturity. I'm 26 years old, and just kind of figuring out what it means to be mature, but to retain that childlike spirit that I think is so important, that I clearly see in you and Greg embodies so well. And is a man, can you be mature, a man, while still being a child at heart? And I've kind of just realized that maturing is kind of putting other people before yourself, in terms of just considering other people, not always putting like other people's happiness before yours. I think like you have to focus on the inner work on yourself, but I think it's just somebody who thinks about the world,
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
One way to put it.
Thank you for sharing. No, I really appreciate what you share, and I resonate with a lot of what you shared. And so if I ask you, Greg, the same question, your answer may be a little different. And guess what? My answer, I promise you, is going to be different. And so I'm not the arbiter of manhood and what that means, right? I might host a podcast that's about manhood and masculinity and, mature masculinity. And I get the great fortune of interviewing people that have been in the trenches of this work for decades. I mean, clinical psychologists, we've got spiritual leaders, we've got all sorts of people that have come on. And they themselves will give you a different answer. And so the thing for me that I want to encourage and I want to remind myself of is about what you said, the man in the mirror. Am I keeping my agreements with myself? Am I challenging myself the way I want to be challenged? Am I turning up the way I want to turn up for those around me and for myself? I can tell you masculinity is thousands of objective characteristics and traits, right? So we can say toxic masculinity, and that doesn't leave women or non-binary people out of the conversation, right? Toxic masculinity is our judgment on these objective traits and how they've been portrayed predominantly by men, mind you, historically, predominantly by men. But not necessarily does that leave anyone else out of the conversation. I'm very conscious of phrases and how they're used and how toxic masculinity, and you didn't bring up toxic masculinity, by the way, I'm pulling the thread myself, how it's been weaponized and how that's caused many men to feel like rather than feel the calling to investigate, they're going on the defense, right? Biting down on the mouth guard and trying to, a survival mechanism, fighting back, right? And so I'm very conscious and careful of talking about manhood and masculinity outside of an objective lens or from the social construct and understanding of what it means to be a man, because I can tell you right now, Paul Kivel is an incredible man who did a lot of research through the 70s, 80s, 90s on interviewing young boys and asking them, what does it mean to be a man? Or what does it mean to be a boy? Or, how do you survive the playground, or how do you react to your friends? And he gathered thousands and thousands of data points, and he discovered, and many have discovered since. I got to talk about the work of Dr. Judy Chu, Dr. Niobe Way, Tony Porter from A Call to Men. These are all people that have taken Kivel's work, and when they ask small kids and they ask boys, what is the worst thing you can be called? And that young boy says, a girl. We go, ooh, what does that teach that young boy then about girls? What if the worst thing you could be called is gay? What does that teach straight boys about what it means to be gay? What does that teach gay boys, closeted gay boys, of what it means to be gay? So what happens is we get what's called the man box, the rules in which you must follow to survive on the playground. Do you think that man box is just for the playground? No, it's life. It's happening in the workplace. It's happening in relationships, right? It's happening across the board. And so this box, and a part of the mission of the Mankind podcast and the Mankind Project, is to tear down that box and prove that there are more than just one way to be a man. Your way, Greg, is different than mine. Your way, Vinny, is different than mine. There's many ways to be a man. And I don't judge the man whose idea of being a man is different than my own. Because nature, nurture. He was raised in a particular environment by a particular set of people and experiences that informed his reality. I can't judge that reality because I didn't live it. He could vote this way. He could believe these things. I can't judge him for that because his experiences got him there. The question I ask is how willing, not wanting, how willing are you to be wrong? Or how willing are you to look at something from a different perspective, a different lens, a different experience? that's where I think the connection can come from, because I can tell you this right now. I came into Chattanooga, right, the southeast of America, with all the judgments and assumptions of the Bible Belt. Racist people that love guns and hate black people. I hate to call it as that was for me, but that, obviously not everyone, but that was my thought coming into this place. How sad is that? That even though I have heritage here, even though I've been able to come here in my life, as a 26. As a 26-year-old moving to Chattanooga, I came in with those assumptions, and it couldn't be more untrue, and in some cases true. There's nuance to this, right? I can tell you right now, the vast majority of people I have met do not subscribe to that. Do not believe that in their heart of hearts. That's not who they are. That's not how they behave. Of course, all of us have our work to do, but that's not been my experience. And it made me realize, wow, how many binaries do I set up in my mind to put people in boxes in my mind? As I'm trying to break out of this box, wow, I'm putting others in boxes in the process. Isn't that interesting? So what I've been really tackling with and juggling and wrestling with in myself is looking at, wow, like look at all these, look at all of what's in me that is trying to inform me of the world. It's trying to put things in black and white thinking. And the more I'm trying to do that, the more I'm learning that there's just gray and there's nuance in everything. And if I want to be a better man to BIPOC men, women, non-binary people, if I want to be a better ally to those who don't identify as straight, if I want, and if I want to, then the question is, am I willing to do the work to get there? Am I willing to have Laymun Wah from Stir Fire Seminars, one of the, in my judgment, one of the most influential educators, guides, authors on racial tensions and racism in America? How willing am I to have him come on my show and ask me the question, when I see a black man, do I question whether or not they're educated? And for me to have to say yes in front of a large audience of people and expose my racism, shitting my britches in the process. Because that's not what I want to be. That's not how I want to be. But are those judgments, assumptions, and biases there in me for whatever reason, however they got there? Yes. I don't want to go there, but am I willing to do the work? Yes, I am. And it's scary and it's messy. So the more conversations I have with people around men, masculinity, mental health, all this stuff, I always try and come from the lens of, man, there is no linear path to healing these divides. There is no straight answer to how men can better understand their role in the world and what masculinity means and what manhood means. It's so nuanced. The only thing I can call men into, not out on, but call them into, is that introspection, is that inner work, is that journey that is scary. It's messy. It's painful. But what I love more than anything is that when I can connect to my black brothers and sisters that I have spent plenty of trench time in many environments, whether in the Mankind Project or professionally, and when they listen to that episode and I'm horrified and terrified of what their response is going to be, and I ask them, what do you think about what I said? And they go, oh, we knew already. Thank you for owning it. And thank you for doing the work. They can trust me more and they're willing to share their stuff with me. Perhaps maybe I've earned a little bit more of their trust in the process. It only comes with doing the work. It only comes with going there and dancing with the darkness that each of us has within us. So I can't think of a straightforward answer to any of that stuff at all. I can only speak from my experiences and the lens in which I view the world. And I can tell you, interview me in a week and it may be different.
Wow. I have so much to say about that. I mean, I think what I'm picking up from your travels to your psychedelic experience to you being willing to have these tough conversations about race, gender, sexuality, it seems that it's all in the interest of growth and of becoming the best version of yourself and the best man that you can be. And for people who are listening to this who have been inspired by all of the incredible stuff you've shared, I'm wondering what advice you would give to the audience of what is the best way to take off that mask, to start doing some of that work, to remove the outer armor that's protecting us and keeping us safe and comfortable.
Yeah, beautiful question. I think context is really important in any question, right? So what's the context of the situation that person is experiencing and dealing with, right? Because many of our masks, and there's an argument to say that all of our masks are a survival mechanism that we develop at a young age. Have either of you checked out Will Smith's new book?
Not yet.
Very excited to, because I know Mark Manson wrote it with him.
Oh, and Mark Manson, gosh, what a legend. Will Smith talks about this in detail. His dad had an anger, a rage to him, a military approach to parenting. And all of the kids responded to that differently. For Will's brother, it was to fight. For his sister, it was to flee. For him, it was to perform. What we've known of Will Smith up until, I guess, the release of this book, he will tell you has been that performer. It hasn't necessarily been him, because that performer was both a survival mechanism and what got him where he is today. So how do we toe the line between this mask, which really is just an extension of who we are? How do we toe the line between the two to know when to put it on, when to put it off? I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you it becomes a problem if you can't go between the bedroom and the boardroom and you don't know how to change those masks. Who does? Who can keep stock, right? So the how Will did it was through the guidance of people like Jay Shetty. It was through his therapist, right? It was this unpacking process. And I tell you right now, Jay Shetty, his therapist, they're just the guide. He's the hero of the story. They can't do the work for him. So it takes facing some pretty scary realities. I only know my experience. I had a very, very fortunate upbringing. I still have my traumas. I still tried to take my life in 2015. I've still had some tough roads. However, those are just my experiences and my masks. And the only thing I can say with confidence is that it comes with the awareness that that which gets hidden will not get healed. And the traumatic experiences that we've all experienced, if they don't get addressed, however scary and giant they may be, you can try and hide and repress and deny that stuff as long as you can. But I promise you, it's like holding a beach ball underwater. It's coming up. And it will probably come up when you least want it to. Oftentimes it comes out in an altered state. So the call to action for the people I speak to, specifically men, is, and I can't force an answer out of anyone other than how much longer are you prepared to allow this cycle to continue? How much longer are you prepared and are you willing to risk this still happening? Whether it's emotional abuse, drug abuse, whatever. What's at risk? What's at risk if you do? What's at risk if you don't? And guess what? Sometimes the answer to both of those is you get fucked up. You die. You don't get the answer. sometimes the answer to both is that. However, the risk if you don't, more often than not, is just a perpetual cycle of the same shit happening on a different day. So my call to men is to take a risk, potentially the greatest risk of their lives. And it's to do the inner work. It's to find a coach, find a guide, find a therapist, find organizations like the Mankind Project. I mean, we've got 38 years of doing this stuff. We've kind of got a good formula. 70,000 men initiated around the world, 24 countries. However, Mankind Project isn't for everyone. They're Sacred Sons, right? They're another fantastic organization. There is, and I promise you, there are men out there that are willing to hold your heart while also hold your feet to the fire. And it's one of the greatest blessings of my life that I found this work, and that I get to be that for other men, and men continue to get to be that for me. So, yeah, man, it's that deep work. It's that inner work. It's the scary stuff, the monster in the closet.
The scarier, the better. And I'm going to be going through the Mankind Project, the new warrior training. I might be calling it the wrong thing, in June.
Wow.
So I'm really looking forward to diving in and doing that inner work. And I just want to say, I really appreciate your perspective, Brandon, because when you're talking about wearing a mask and how it's protecting you, you have experienced some very large traumas in your life. You've gone through some very dark valleys. And a perspective that I'm going to offer from my own experience is that you can still be wearing a mask if you've had less hardships on your journey. And for me, I was wearing a mask that was essentially getting in between who I thought other people wanted me to be and who I knew myself to be. And while it was less of trying to hold these traumas and pains in and not let them come to the surface, like that beach ball example, it was just this slow, constant, low-grade anxiety that was always there, because I always knew that I wasn't expressing myself genuinely and authentically. And just day after day, knowing that you actually aren't showing up how you can be is a lot. It's a very heavy weight to carry.
It hurts.
And it hurts.
It's like breathing through a straw.
Exactly. You're getting, 1/100th of the oxygen, of the life, of the vitality that you need. And I guess I'm answering my own question here too, is for the people who that resonates with, what helped me was the slow annihilation of my ego, the slow presentation of, this is who I am. Let me put a little bit of my real self out there and see what happens. Okay, I didn't die. I'm okay. The next day, let me put a little bit more of myself out there. You're putting a toe in the water and you're slowly getting in, and then you realize, holy shit, like people like me for who I am, and I could have just been myself this whole time. Yeah. So it can be a slow process as well.
The water's fine. Come in, like there's such a cool thing, I did the dating courses and read the books and things like that. And I wondered why it never worked. And how come all of a sudden I moved to Chattanooga at the beginning of the pandemic, and I find the woman of my dreams. We're getting married in October. How does that happen? Well, it doesn't happen without the work. And it's, I find my people when I'm vibrating and operating at a level that is in integrity with the man I want to be. Right. And the man I am. I had this incredible experience down in Peru working with a hypnotist who was also there for ayahuasca. And he took me through a process to find my higher self. And I found my higher self through a visualization. And it was like as real and tangible as like I was there. And I asked this higher self, handsome devil, I said, how do I get to you? And I said, I guess, or he said, you're going to kick yourself when you realize how close you are. Because I was putting all these barriers and boundaries between the man I want to become. I was telling myself that I was standing at the foot of the mountain, not that I was near the top. And who knows where I am? I could very well be on the foot, but every day I get closer to that. And so when I was able to truly love the man in the mirror, I was able to finally finally the love I gave meant something. It finally meant something. It was clean energy. It was coming from a good place. And so I could finally give it. And it was so nice to be able to give that gift and receive it, to be reciprocal. And I meet Christine and I go, this woman can hold my heart and I can hold hers. Transference, transcendence. I always used to judge people that got together real quick and ended up getting engaged and married and things. And I always thought like, oh, see how that lasts, flash in the pan romance, right? And the more she and I travel, we meet people that knew each other for 6 weeks and they got married. They've been together 60 years. It just feels that woman being in my life for the rest of my life, whatever that looks like, is as real as the sky being blue and grass being green. And I can't explain it any other way other than it's just easy. So, not simple, but easy.
Definitely. I mean, hell yeah, man. That is awesome. Congratulations. I think we're all searching for that. But we don't know how to say quite as eloquently. But I just want to know, so after the ayahuasca experience, and I'm sure there's much other steps after that, but I just want to know, like, what was the first kind of opening of your heart and how did you transition into kind of creating your new life? Because I'm sure, I mean, you're an extremely driven person and the pressure to perform, and I'm sure just never left you. You're still going after your dreams and everything. And how did you kind of bring that new perspective into like your career and you know what I mean? Like finding more of a balance as opposed to like the burnout culture. But
I stopped playing everyone else's game. I'm playing checkers, they're playing chess or mahjong or whatever. I began to accept what came most naturally to me. I always judged myself for being a show off. I always judged myself for being extroverted. I always judged myself for not being understated. I admire people like my brother. My brother, 6'3", tall, dark, handsome, super quiet. He's the one who's in the room and he's watching the room. He's not trying to take center stage and get attention. No, I'm center stage trying to get everyone's attention and adoration. How that has changed though, since when I had the gym and was trying to be, get everyone's validation and love, is that, hey, compliment me all day. Give me validation and love. I like it. In fact, I love it. I don't need it. So thank you for the gift. Tell me I did amazing on stage. Thank you. Not, no, it's nothing. No, it was okay. I could have done better. No, thank you. But I don't need it. I get everything I need from me. Not all the time, right? Not all the time. It's kind of like a continual challenge, but I can't seek it from anyone else. I can't seek it from Christine. My emotions and my self-worth is not her job. Neither is hers mine. So what I'm learning is that, and I like to get tangible. I love frameworks. You guys are aware of the Enneagram?
Yeah, I'm also a 3.
You're also a 3, right? So 3s on the Enneagram, they're performers. Give me the microphone. I'm going to do a lot. I'm going to do more. I'm going to turn up and perform. I don't judge myself for it anymore. It's my sword that I use to cut through life. It's my tool to use. And the more I've lent into that, just the happier I've been, the less self-critical, the less insecure. I've been able to finally stand in the mirror and go, Brandon, you like attention. You like to be center stage. You like to be showing off. And that's okay. Obviously, situational awareness is important. And when I'm surrounded by people that want to find that in themselves, I'm learning to tone it back to allow them to turn up. So that's just an example, but to operate from a place of abundance and not focus on what I'm not has been so much more enjoyable. I can tell you right now, I'm not the best at numbers. And through my whole business life, I've judged myself, whipped myself for not being an accountant, right? And having the same interest in numbers. It's just not how my brain works. Why spend 100% of my time on the 5% of myself that will never be that great when I could put all my time and energy in the things that I'm best at? I don't want to be a black belt in Brandon Clift. I want to be a PhD black belt with 6 stripes on it. I don't want to be Gregory. I don't want to be Vinny. I want to be Brandon, the best I can be. And the only way I can do that is just keep yanking on that low-hanging fruit of my personality and who I am. And if people don't like it, blessings to you. I hope you have a great day. And you do not have to be around me. You do not have to. So that's my answer today. Can't tell you my answer tomorrow.
Keep doing the inner work. And I know I shouted out our female listeners earlier. Now to our male listeners, all you have to do to find the love of your life is start doing that inner work.
Yeah.
Pick up an Australian accent.
And that, yes.
I can tell you right now, I have used this accent for both good and evil. Yes.
Of course. As you should. As you should.
Hey, the dark side and the light side. No.
Well, Brandon.
My missus is like, please don't lose the accent. I'm like, I live in Tennessee. You know how sticky the accent is here?
Well, Brandon, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for being so open and vulnerable and honest about your journey. And it has been an absolute pleasure today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, mate. Can I do a shameless plug?
Please.
Yeah. Wherever you listen to your podcast, head to the Mankind Podcast. Actually, there's no "the" in front. It's just Mankind Podcast. If you want to listen to just really insightful interviews on all things race, gender equality, many of the challenges facing us socially in the world, our whole focus is around having courageous and very uncomfortable conversations so that you don't have to right now. Let us be the first to have the conversation. Let us be the first to bridge that gap so that you can then do the work. If you want to be a better man, if you want to be a better ally, and guess what? We have a ton of female listeners too. Because if you're a lady out there wanting to get the advantage on your man, listen to this podcast. Because I can tell you right now, 70,000 men in the Mankind Project around the world, right, for the past 38 years. I promise you, a large percentage of those men who did those weekends had their arms crossed and their missus pushed them out the car without even stopping. Don't come back until you do the work. So thank you to the women out there that help hold up the mirror to help us be better men, and non-binary folk and everyone in between. But yes, the Mankind Podcast, check it out. You can find it through brandonclift.com.
Awesome, man. Such a pleasure having you on. And thank you for doing such important work at such an important time in history, because we all need it. We all need it now more than ever. So hell yeah. And we'll see you next time, brother.
Thank you, man. Until next time. Well, there you have it. Another powerful episode of the Mankind Podcast. If you want to find out more about the Dare to Dream fellas, Gregory and Vincent, I will have links to not only their show, but their personal links as well as this is just a fantastic opportunity and really a call to action to all of you out there. If you felt moved at all by my journey, and how men's work has saved my life, and you yourself are looking to not only find a safe place to do your work, but also pay it forward, then I strongly encourage that you reach out to the Mankind Project. Find out about their online trainings. With the world opening up again, we're looking to get more in-person trainings happening again. My goodness, I cannot wait. So again, links to those will also be in the show notes. Guys, this has been a real honor for me to be a part of this show. 365 days later from the beginning of this project. Well, I mean, it was years in the making prior to that with Mask Off Monday. But this show alone, the impact that we know it's having and the feedback that we're getting from all of you, it does not go unnoticed. It has been the fuel for myself, for Paul, for Boyson, to bring you the best content possible to help you be able to look in the mirror and get a better understanding, a deeper connection, and a stronger relationship with the man that you see in the mirror. And so with that, know that you are the priority in this. You are the ones that we are doing this for, which is why we need your feedback. I'm going to give you my personal email, brandon@brandonclift.com. Again, linked in the show notes. I want to know your feedback. I want to know what you love and why. I want to know what you would like to see different and why. And I would also love to hear your suggestions. Who do you know that you think would be great for the show? Many of the guests that we've had on the show have been recommendations from our listeners. So if you know someone who is moving the needle in this world, that has insights that can help us as men, and of course, those who listen who don't identify as male, if they have those insights from their experiences in this amazing journey called life that you think could benefit the listeners just like yourself, please don't hide them from us. Send them to me at brandon@brandonclift.com. Again, we are 1 year down, 60 episodes in, and this is only the beginning. So with that, I can't wait to just kick some serious tush. Tried to sound cool while saying that. You can't really, can you? Anywho, let's make this second year absolutely incredible and even more powerful than the first. Lots of love. See you next week. This has been another episode of the Mankind Podcast, produced in association with the Mankind Project USA. We have been your hosts, Paul Newell, Boyson Hodgson, and myself, Brandon Clift, and we want to thank our guests for joining us today and imparting their wisdom from their experiences in this amazing journey called life. If you want to find out more about today's guests and support them in their mission, you can find links to them in the show notes. Now, if you have found gold and insights that you believe could benefit your loved ones and those you care about, be sure to share it with them. And of course, we are always grateful for a rating and review of the show on iTunes. Now, we've got to give special thanks to our back-end team, producer, editor, and audio ninja for the show, Michael J. Russer, and Don Huff, who takes care of our graphics and promotions and pretty much makes us look pretty. So, of course, thank you, Don. Now, above all else, we've got to thank you, the listener, because through your attention and your support, you have made it possible for us to let men all over the world know that they are not alone and that there is more than one way to be a man. And if something in this episode has touched you, then perhaps it is the call to action to get involved in men's work. With live trainings happening constantly and in-person trainings happening all over the world, the Mankind Project definitely has something for you. Now, if you've enjoyed the music in this episode and all of our episodes, be sure to check out Jim Donovan and the Sun King Warriors. I have links to them in the show notes. And lastly, just know, what it means to me to be a man is completely different than what it means for you. What it means for Paul, what it means for Boyson, that is the beauty of this journey. So if you are looking for guidance, support, and community as you begin to unpack and dive deeper into your men's work journey, then you know where to find us. Same place, same time, next week. Lots of love. We'll see you then.